So, this is a special episode. I'll be talking about HR in a charity organization. It's also part of Podcastathon, which is a global charity podcast event. This episode of my podcast is dedicated to Trinity Place Foundation. I'm on the board and also a consultant to not for profits, so quite conscious of all the amazing work that charities and not for profits do. So stay tuned to support a great cause and learn about HR. That's coming up now. And yes, this is the HR Hub podcast with me, Andrea Adams. Keep listening to learn about this and all kinds of things related to HR. You can also find me on YouTube. So today I'm so happy to have Jennie Deneka. Jennie is the CEO of Trinity Place Foundation and leading the charge on all the good work they do. I'm not going to introduce her further than that because I am going to ask her to introduce herself. Hi, Jennie. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for the invite, Angela.
Well, thanks for coming on. Good to see you in a different circumstance than normal.
It's always a pleasure to talk about HR.
So really, well, you know what? We actually haven't even ever had that conversation in all the board work we've done. So I'm actually going to be quite curious about this. But before we get to that, can you just tell us about TPFA and all the good work that they do?
Absolutely. So TPFA overall and firstly is a housing provider. So we provide housing to very unique populations within Calgary, the Calgary area. Um, First, we provide housing to social service clients. They're the main group of housing that we provide. The second group that we provide housing to would be clients that have mental health and addictions problem. And those are probably our most challenging group of clients that we have. They are at two of our smaller locations, but again, the largest number of staff are located in those because we do provide quite a bit of support to those clients. They are at our Peter Coyle Center and our Templemont Gardens place. Our housing that we provide that is non-service housing is where we are a landlord, and those housing is all affordable housing. So it's both below market as well as at market housing that we provide, predominantly again to seniors.
Okay, so when you said social service housing, it was that latter part you meant? The part of seniors and affordable housing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So remember sorry, I'll just clarify. For affordable housing, there is the social housing aspect of housing, and then there's the below market piece. And so we do provide housing that is both. The social housing piece is the rent geared towards income, and that is where clients, no matter what their income is, they pay 30% of their income to their rent. And the below market piece is basically regulated by CMHC, where they send us what their going rate of market is, and then we charge a percentage below that, whether it's 10% or 20% below the market.
Okay. You know what? I've been working with you for a few months now, and it still sounds complicated, but we'll give it. Uh, anyway. I think that complexity of the types of people we serve
Yeah,
is part of what makes this business challenging and so meaningful.
yeah, absolutely. Um, Knowing that the clients that you serve aren't just clients who need a place to call home, but clients that need a place to call home with support services. I think what is unique about Trinity is that we have access to people that will help clients find the services they need. Healthcare system and finding community supports is always complicated. Come from the healthcare background, and I've always said how complex we make healthcare. And so we are there as a provider to support clients in finding that additional help that they may need. Our only one request that we ask is that you are competent. And when I say competent, I'm talking about your mental ability to be able to manage the people that will come to support you. So you need to be able to coordinate if you're having a housekeeping group come in to provide home care support with housing. If you're having another group that comes in to provide, maybe you need help with your daily living tasks of getting up in the morning, a shower, getting dressed. You need to be able to coordinate all of those individuals that will come into your home and support you. And so people who are mentally competent can do that, whereas a client that may have some sort of dementia or confusion would be challenged in being able to coordinate all of that, right? Without outside supports.
So I want to do shift gears and provide value, that HR value to my audience that has come to expect that from me. As a CEO, and be frank here, what makes HR helpful to you? What do you need from them?
Um, HR is so big. Um, and I think as a not-for-profit, as a CEO, what is really, really important to me is having an HR individual that can first identify what are the basics that you need to have from an HR perspective, right? So when you think about HR, and again, I'm going to talk about like HR, the basics. So you need occupational health and safety. That's part of HR. And so you need to have that piece as your foundation because that's legislation. Every organization must have occupational health and safety to make sure their employees are safe at work. All right. That's a basic piece of HR. And then you think about labor standards. That's another pretty basic piece about HR. So I need to make sure that I'm managing people according to labor standards, approving leaves, sick time, terminations, all of that is happening from a labor standard perspective. And I need to make sure that I have an HR person that understands I need to know the basics first of what we're doing. And you need to make sure that I'm doing the basics because those are legislated and those are really kind of the law, right?
Mhm.
And then you have the next layer of HR, which is where you get to do the kind of fun stuff, but not every organization has the ability to do it. And that talks about employee engagement. It talks about and you do wanna do it, but how much you do it is depending on your budget. You think about leadership development. Again, you wanna do that stuff, but again, it's dependent on your budget, right? So, there are some basic pieces that I wanna make sure I have an HR person that works with me to say, "Here's the basics we have to do. Here's how we're meeting those basics. Now let's move to the area that is the fun stuff that we get to do that we should be doing anyways, but it is dependent on our budget. And so how do we now prioritize year over year what area we focus on, recognizing that you have limited financial means, and so you need to be able to be flexible in those areas.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So those compliance pieces and ensuring the organization is compliant,
Mhm.
that is critical. Um, what about those others? So not just compliance, but maybe some other non-glamorous tasks that you need your HR to be doing. Is there anything to that?
Yeah, so for example, performance evaluations, right? What and again, what I've seen in a lot of not-for-profits is that kinda gets left off to the side because it is a lot of work and not all of them have a performance management tool, right?
Mhm.
So giving an individual feedback every single year about how they're doing it from a performance perspective, to me is a really good balance, to move the organization forward, but to also from a fairness perspective from the employees being able to set clear expectations and then support them to meet those expectations. Those are the non-glamorous pieces of HR that to me are also very standard, but they're not legislated.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's important that organizations have an HR person that understands that and moves the organization in that direction. Recruitment, another area that again is not expected, not standardized. Every organization does it a little bit different because labor standards do not speak to how you have to recruit. But again, it is a best practice area that you should have standards around how you're recruiting, how long you're posting jobs for, what does your job description look like? And then in each part of those job descriptions, what does that contain in those job descriptions as well?
Now I wanna look like, just so that was, like, getting into the nitty-gritty. Now I wanna zoom out big picture. How do you see that, HR is contributing to the mission, to your
Mm.
ability to execute what it is you're there to do?
Well, every mission for an organization in my mind is based on the people. The people are the ones who help you to deliver your mission. HR helps you to find and hire, recruit, retain the right people to achieve your mission. Again, that goes back to there is no rules around how you recruit. It's
Yeah.
not legislated, but a good standard talks about how do you connect your recruitment back to finding the right people that can fulfill your mission. So, what are the values that you associate when you do interview questions? And again, you should have standardized interview questions. Most organizations don't. but you should. I shouldn't say most organizations.
You know what? No, I mean, you're not wrong in my experience. Um, e Especially smaller organizations, which not-for-profits tend to be
Yeah.
often, not all of them, but they don't have standard interview questions or standard, recruitment process. So you're
Yeah.
not wrong. Anyways, go on.
And so it is really important to have that, and it's important to have an HR person that understands the importance of those pieces, but even more important, that can make it simple and not complicated, right?
Oh.
The process having a recruitment process to me can be made very basic, or you can make it very, very complicated. And so when you're in a not-for-profit environment, keeping it simple, I like to use the KISS principle of keep it simple, stupid. um, it's important that that person understands that, because we don't in not-for-profits have a lot of resources for things like that. And so how do we keep it simple so that it's easy for managers, easy for the organization, and it meets some of those basic standards that to me are really, really important. So having, standardized interview questions, having a standardized process for how you post your jobs, how long they're posted for. To me, that's all important in not only for the organization and how it operates, but it also creates a level of fairness. The employees, especially when they see that, oh, jobs are all posted for 5 days, not some for three, some for two, some for five. Um, that creates a level of fairness, especially if you have internal applications that are happening as well, right? Um, so a person that again understands that and makes that connection with this is great HR practice, but here's how it's also this good HR practice is also seen by the rest of the organization, by the employees that it serves. It shows them that we are doing a fair process and that everybody jobs are posted for 5 days. Everybody gets an opportunity to see them. Everybody gets an opportunity to do the same application process, because these standardized interview questions, everyone gets the same questions, and the interview questions are ranked. So all of your answers may be out of five, and people are given scores out of five. And there's an understanding for the people that are doing the interview on question number one. What does the best answer look like? So we all have an idea of what 5 out of 5 looks like. All sounds simple to say, not as simple to do. Let's
So many, I mean, even just thinking about recruitment, and that's just what we're using as an example, but, uh, so many people have strong beliefs around recruitment. And so then HR is having to navigate that and, convince people to do it our way. Uh,
I
so
think
as Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think HR brings, and I think when you talk about convincing people to do it the HR way, I think it is really about helping managers and leaders to understand the benefits of doing it the way HR is. Having people understand the transparency that it creates and the fairness from the people that are being interviewed. And also from a legal perspective, it also protects the organization to have standardized interview questions, to have standardized ranking, because anyone can say, you didn't hire me because of X, Y, and Z. You didn't hire me because I had a disability. And if you have where the interview questions are the same and everybody is ranked, and that individual that is saying you didn't hire me because of my disability, there's no discussion on on those interview questions around that individual's disability. It's about how they ranked compared to everybody else. So it is a bit of a protection for the organization as
Yep,
well.
it is, risk management for sure.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective as a CEO of a not-for-profit, what are the most challenging HR type issues that you run into where, if we're HR in a not-for-profit, we should really be building our skills, and maybe it is the same as any other organization, but still gonna ask.
Um, I think for me, the biggest challenge that I've seen from an HR perspective, especially with a not-for-profit, is getting the HR individual to understand, what do we have to do? What can we stop doing? What do we need to continue doing? Again, if I had a bucket of money and no financial constraints, I would love to do everything. I would love to do employee engagement, retention programs, all of these wonderful things that HR has in its toolkit. But unfortunately, not for profits do not have a bottomless bucket of financial resources. So for us, we have to think about what do we have to do? What do we have to continue doing? And what can we stop doing? Because as our financial constraints come in, we still want to do good HR. But this year budget may say we're doing good, not great HR, right? Great HR to me is the leadership development, the employee engagement, the retention programs, all of those pieces. That is great HR. But your budget may not allow you to do great HR. So then we have to downstep it and say, we're going to do good HR. Good HR is the recruitment, the standardized questions, the occupational health, all the stuff that is legislated that we have to do, knowing labor standards, all those pieces. That's good HR. I think it's important to have an HR individual that understands that. I know, if you're in a if you're in any profession, you want to be able to provide excellence. Um, Excellence is based on your budget.
Yes, sometimes I think you can, with a not for profit, I'm just gonna, share my own 2 cents. I think you can get creative
Yep.
because, there's so much goodwill around the purpose of the organization
Mhm.
that, and there's so much to pitch in terms of, recruitment. Like, you have so much people want to be doing good work. They want to know that the work that they're doing counts. I mean, that comes out time and time again across any engagement survey. And I think good HR is going to capitalize on that.
So I agree with you, Andrew, that people want to do good work. People want to join for the purpose of the organization. I would say there's two sides to that coin. You
Okay.
have to have people that want to join for the purpose of the organization, but they also have to have the skill set, right?
Yep.
Um, because we have a lot of people who want to do the good work, don't necessarily have the right skill set. And so that in its sense can create additional problems for an organization, right? So you need both. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think not for profits as and charitable organizations, because we are challenged with finding people. I think sometimes we take people that want to do the good work without thinking about do they have the right skill set though to make us successful.
Mhm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, so when budgets are tight,
Hmm.
we've talked about just focusing on doing good HR when budgets are particularly tight. But is there any other creative things HR can do to help contribute to achieving your financial goals?
Again, I think being able to find someone that knows the difference between HR excellence, HR great, and HR good. Um, and then having an HR person that I think is a little bit more of a generalist versus a person that is very, very focused in one area. Like, you get the
Yes.
recruitment specialists. They're awesome for recruitment. But when it comes to other areas of HR, that not necessarily their skill set, right? So understanding that as well from an HR perspective and when you're considering as an HR person who is going into HR as a career move and saying this is the area I want to work in, recognizing if you're going to work for a not-for-profit, making yourself more of a generalist where you have, tools in all of those HR areas is hugely beneficial for an organization. And then the willingness to actually be able to say that I can step into recruitment, I can step into labor relations, I can step into these little areas because I have some knowledge and some skill sets in that area. Um, it is always important for the organization to have that because again, an HR department in a not-for-profit may only be one or two people, right?
Mhm. Uh, is there if you could, anybody out there who's thinking about getting a job at a not-for-profit in HR, what's the one piece of advice or wisdom you'd share with them?
Generalist. Be a generalist.
Be a generalist.
Be a generalist and have a willingness to step into different buckets and different opportunity areas. I think not for profits are a little bit. more flexible when it comes to HR and understanding that people don't necessarily have the full scope of something. And so we're willing to say, okay, you as a generalist, you understand this area really well. We'll hire a consultant to support you in the rest of that and maybe moving that piece forward. So not necessarily having you're not a subject matter expert, but being able to understand it enough that you can lead a consultant where we have gaps that we have to address as an organization. Um, yeah, that's the one piece of advice I would give anybody that wants to work for a not-for-profit in an from an HR perspective is be a generalist.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, that just led me to think about something else. How, what do you think a not for profit has to offer to an HR generalist?
Opportunities to do a lot of different things because like I said, we usually most small organizations, we have 1 or 2 people in HR. And so you have an opportunity to diversify your skill set. You come in as a generalist, but as the organization needs different niche areas, we're happy to support you in gaining that education to support the organization. So you may come in as a generalist where you have, a 3 across the spectrum of HR. You may leave the organization where you're leaving as a generalist, but your skill set is now a 5 or a 6 across the spectrum of HR. So, you get to learn a lot in a not-for-profit, and you get to do a lot more as a not-for-profit HR individual versus if you work in a larger organization.
Hmm. And I think the other thing for me, which is so important, which is likely why I am on the board of TPFA, is just that you're doing something that has such a positive impact
Absolutely.
in the in our case, in the community.
Mhm.
Uh, but to whatever the purpose of the organization is.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is why people work for us as not-for-profits. Our mission, our purpose is be useful to people, right?
Hmm. It is meaningful. Okay. So here's your chance to plug TPFA. If anybody wants to learn more about what TPFA is doing, or I don't know, sees opportunities after listening to this interview, what do you suggest?
So if you're interested in working with TPFA, we do have lots of opportunities. We are going through a transition as an organization. We are reinventing ourselves as a move forward, and it's a very exciting time for TPFA. So um, we are going to be redoing our corporate structure. And by redoing our corporate structure, we're not moving away from our charitable cause. We will continue to do our charitable cause, but without having the financial means to do that, we would lose that charitable cause. And so we're at a stage right now where we're reinventing ourselves, but our charitable cause is going to remain in place. And so, um, yeah, it's an exciting time. I think it's a very exciting time because we are looking for how do we do this going forward, recognizing that you have to self-sustain yourself. So diversifying our portfolio is an important piece to us right now, where we're not just looking at government funded opportunities, but also looking at how do we self-sustain ourselves through private venture or private public partnerships as well.
If they want to reach out to TPFA, what do you suggest? Where should they go?
So send us a email. There is our info at TPFA that you could just send us an info and say you're interested in hearing more about what we're doing. And we're always happy to have conversations with individuals, whether it's for employment opportunities, what we're doing from a growth perspective, or just opportunities to partner with us as a key stakeholder in helping us contribute to our mission, vision, and values.
Yes, yes. And that's so important, that coordination piece in delivering the best outcomes to the community. Well, thanks so much, Jenny, both for participating in this interview and for the work you do. The thing I'm thinking about is what we should be aiming for and when you talk about doing good HR. I think that's important because I think sometimes we get we really want to get into the fancy stuff, but we've got to consider what the mission and ability of the organization is. However, We have reached the end of this episode. Thanks for listening out there, and we will catch you next time when I have a regular episode with another amazing guest.